r/AskReddit, nsfw, what did your parents teach you as a kid that you didn't realize was actually fked up until you were older? They said foster parents were all pedophiles who raped and pimped the kids they took in. My stepdad would tell us this whenever we got bruises from him hitting us to discourage us from calling social services or telling a teacher. Edit, didn't expect this to blow up. Thanks for all the love. I turned out okay. Met some people who foster in my adult years and they're the nicest, kindest people ever. My stepdad left my mom for a Chinese mail order wife, and my mom remarried to a truck driver who is the best dad a guy could have. Anytime I felt hurt by a conflict with a friend, my parents would tell me to never talk to them again because they aren't real friends anyway. I ghosted all of my best friends thinking it was the right thing to do. Now, I know that real friends talk things out and it makes the friendships even stronger. A very painful realization. I never even considered my parents could have been wrong. Sad face. Apparently healthy conflict resolution doesn't involve complete avoidance in the form of locking yourself in the bedroom for days on end. My dad told me he could drink beer in the car if he drank it while the car was stopped. It's only drinking and driving if the car is in motion. I was like, makes sense. I was around 4. My parents told me that I had a limited number of words and when I got to that limit I would die. I guess it was an easy way to make me shut up. My dad was teaching me about credit cards and said you can just make the minimum payment every month. It blew my mind, made it seem like free money. Thank God I didn't take that advice. I pay my credit card off every month and he's drowning in credit card debt. After arguing with a girlfriend and not speaking with her for a few days, both my parents told me separately to hold onto my beef with her like a grudge and use it against her later. Flushed face. I've been married to the girlfriend now 25 years this year, never once took my parents' advice, and have no idea how my parents' marriage survived LOL. If you ignore bullies they will go away. If you're sad that means the devil is inside you and you need to pray for forgiveness. I was 6 and my cat had just died. During a car ride my dad once explained to me the concept of micro-murder. It was the idea that the seconds spent in traffic behind someone driving below the speed limit, and other instances of people inconveniencing you, were seconds of your life that you couldn't get back, and should be upset about. I realize as an adult that he's got some issues and just needed an excuse to resent random people on the street. How to lie or avoid situations where truthful responses would get me in trouble. Anytime I spoke up about anything really I'd be ridiculed and put down by my mother, so I stopped talking. If I told her something good happened at school she'd ask why I was still getting such bad grades. So I just stopped talking. If someone ever touches you, hit them back and don't stop hitting until they stop moving. My dad, who is facing his 3rd attempted murder charge. That the police were going to come and take me away unless I hit. Nothing sinister, he just thought it was funny. Edit, see this one touched a nerve. Sorry if dragged up bad memories. Upon hearing stories of my childhood, my husband had to break it to me that it was not in fact normal for moms to share their antipsychotic meds, or chill pills, as she would call them, with their young children. Do not ever be a bother to anyone. Solve all your problems by yourself. Not me, but someone I know was told growing up that only sluts use condoms. Yes, their parents told them this when they were growing up. That every interaction with other people is transactional in some way. Nobody ever wants to be around you just because they like you. Not fucked up, but when I was a kid my dad told me you couldn't get sunburned past 1 p.m. and I believed him until I was 23. Edit, spelling. Situation awareness, what seems odd or out of place. Felt like I was being trained by Batman when I realized what he was doing, dad's from a rough part of Mexico with a lot of narco gang wars, so he was just teaching me to read if a place or a situation was out of the ordinary. Definitely not as bad as a lot of these other ones, and I know it wasn't done on purpose to be malicious, but to eat when I was sad or upset. It's easier and faster to tell a kid to go eat something as a distraction than it is to sit down and deal with it, especially if said kid is upset a lot due to living in abusive environments, getting bullied at school, etc. It definitely really fucked up my relationship with food, leading to emotional eating, overweight turning into obesity, even more bullying, disordered eating, and other mental health issues. I realized probably 15 years ago that this was an issue / the cause of it, but even though I know that, it's still something I'm working on unlearning. My dad instilled crippling perfectionism in me, which I realized was insane when I got older and people told me to just do my best. When I was in grade school, I would come to my dad with A's all super excited. But, if it was anything less than a 100%, he would ask for the missing percentage. So, when I had a 98%, he'd say, well, where's the 2%? And now, if I do anything less than perfect, I beat myself up. My mom taught me that when you have bug bites, you should scratch them until they bleed, and then rub salt on them to make them stop itching. It wasn't until I was 23 and passed that home remedy on to a friend and they immediately told me how masochistic it was that I realized something was weird about it. Emotional self-sufficiency. In other words, don't show your emotions, don't feel your emotions, don't be swayed by others' emotions. Empathy is bad and for the weak. Basically also reinforce these teachings by making me having to do bloody and demoralizing tasks, carrying entrails barehanded without being allowed to use buckets or killing animals, lots of physical punishment, verbal abuse, isolation from others. Stepmother insisted I should remain pure so when the rapture took place I would be a warrior saint. Yet when I moved out and found out people don't have to live like this, it took me a week just to decompress what I escaped from. Men use their head and hands for the will of God. Women use their hearts and bodies for the will of man. I always had anxiety as a child and my mother said the only way to get over it is to deal with the situation head on. Sounds great until I told her my dear of escalators and she pushed me down and I fell and almost got my hair caught. Another thing she loved to teach me is how self-defense is necessary. Great. Where do I take lessons? There were no lessons. She said being with my abusive ex was enough of a lesson. I should have learned then that parents are completely infallible. Know exactly what's best for you, should never be questioned, and you should do everything they ask you to do, including being effectively a slave. Only TV families resolve their problems and apologize after a big fight. Real families just act like it never happened. Whenever we went to a yard sale, my parents would say that they were going to Jew them down on price. I literally had no idea until I was an adult that they were saying Jew. I thought it was some other word like Jew. I could not even imagine that this was a racist statement or what it actually meant as a child. As an adult, I finally realized and was so shocked. My dad always told me work will set you free. Do your chores, work will set you free, do your homework because work will set you free. This went on for about a decade until I came back from history at school and asked him why it was on the entrance to Auschwitz. That having and expressing emotions was shameful. That's some bullshit. I am not worth anything intrinsically. I'm only of value if I am productive. No kid should be on drugs. I was 11, diagnosed with ADHD by a psychologist back when that was pretty new. Yet, every teacher stated some version of if you weren't so smart, I'd hold you back, and I barely graduated high school. Seriously thought I couldn't do math. Flash forward to 28. Get over the stigma. Take good meds, graduate cum laude with degree in finance at 32. Turns out I can do pretty heavy equations in my head when the hurricane isn't spinning. They made me distrust my own intelligence. They talked down to me and treated me like an airhead, giving me a smirk every time I tried to be serious about anything. It wasn't until I was an adult that I learned that I am intelligent and gained self-confidence despite the negative self-esteem they had instilled in me. To be in constant survival mode. Like as in always worrying about the end of the world. Why? Why am I constantly as a child looking over my back in fear of what I will offer to a group if the apocalypse happens? Weird stuff. I thought I was savvy in bunker mode, but really it's trauma-inducing. Parents and other related adults would give me awful shit anytime I didn't want to kiss/hug my male cousins and relatives or deal with them physically touching me to wrestle or play, saying that I was hurting their feelings. Basically just teaching me that my feelings didn't matter about my own body. You have better balance, so you, the 10-year-old, should climb up on the roof and clean the gutters and sweep the chimney. Also climb up to the top of the flagpole at the wreck and fix the rope stuck in the pulley. And install new gutters, but I was 13 by then. If someone gets in a fight with one of your older brothers, find a brick and hit them in the back of the head. Actually, I knew that was a bit fucked up back then. Keep secrets to protect family. No matter what they are. Once a year, a fat old man sneaks into our house, eats our food, leaves me gifts, and kisses my mom. Brazil nuts. I was 14 before I knew what their actual name was. We lived in a normal, mixed community with no racial bias, in general. Family always called them nertos. I legitimately thought that's what they were called. As I got into my early teens, I knew it was a bad slang term, but my older family members always called them that. Then a close friend explained it all to me. Sex is sinful and you're a slut if you let boys look at you. Quote from my mother, and a good beating came with it because a boy smiled at me when I was 9. Ice cream truck turns on the music when they're out of ice cream. That if you're not bleeding, vomiting, or broken, you don't get to cry about it. That you are at least partially to blame for anything bad that happens to you. Get beat up by a bully? It's at last partly your fault and you're to be blamed and punished for it. Get bit by a dog? It's at last partly your fault and you're to be blamed and punished for it. Accidentally step on a nail, cut yourself, fall, have an asthma attack. It's at last partly your fault and you're to be blamed and punished for it. A few years ago my younger brother, we are in our 30s now, was out on the town at night and got mugged. I had to drive him to the hospital. I started blaming him for it and had to pause and ask myself, WTF was I thinking? And right then and there had an epiphany that the way we were raised was totally screwed up. In an effort to teach me to be considerate, or not selfish, I guess, my dad said, "Love yourself" last more than a few times to me. That's a mess I've been untangling for about 35 years. My dad basically conditioned everyone to hide in the room when he had guests over. Now as an adult I have to fight the urge to not hide in the room when we have guests over because it's considered rude or whatever. I remember my sisters and I all getting a talk about how when women dress provocatively it's her own fault if she were to get our *ped. Men can't help themselves, which is why my family had such a strict dress code. When we bought new clothes we would have to go show my dad and he would make us walk around, sit, stand, and then decide if it was appropriate or not. It really didn't settle in just how gross that whole thing was until I got older. Lost cause movement. My mom still tries to correct me when I call it the American Civil War. My grandma told me that June bugs would crawl in my ear, eat through my eardrum, and lay eggs in my brain. There wasn't an unless you do _______, it was just a fact. I still put my hands over my ears if there are lots of flying bugs around. ETA, my mom taught me how to break into a house with a driver's license. My uncle told me how to stop a bully by punching them in the throat, hard as I could. My grandma told me cats are the devil and eat their kittens' sans heads for fun. That it's totally okay to abuse everyone and everything around you, if you aren't physical with them. Once mentioned when I was like 10 that I just won't have sex until I'm married. BC That's what they taught me in religion class, Catholic school, and my mom just casually said, well, you can't do that. BC Catholic men have needs too. This was a difficult one to unlearn. Load your bullets into the magazine with gloves on so you don't leave prints. Always thought it was to keep the oil from your fingers off them. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you have enjoyed this video and subscribe to never miss an upload.